Hello, we are doing the second form of factorization, which is called grouping. Now, in grouping, people, you will always have four or more terms. But importantly, grouping is just a repeated factorization by taking out the highest common factor. So, really, people, grouping is nothing different from taking out the highest common factor. Now, I want you to have a look at this, what I called the pattern. When we have two terms, okay, and we take out the highest common factor, then the highest common factor goes in front of the bracket, and then we have inside the bracket the remainder of term 1 plus or minus remainder of term 2. That's the pattern I taught you for highest common factor factorization. Now, when you look at grouping, because you have four or more terms, okay, and it will be 6 and 8, in most cases it is 4, you will simply group your terms. Okay, look here, 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So the first step is we will group our terms in groups of 2. Okay, and you will then therefore factorize the first 2 by taking out the highest common factor. So that's why I've got highest common factor 1, which gives you remainder 1 plus or minus remainder 2. And then the pattern goes on, people. We do a second factorization by taking out the highest common factor for the next 2 terms, which then gives me the remainder of term 3 plus or minus the remainder of term 4. So we are basically doing twice the factorization of highest common factor. Okay? Then if you now look at what you have after your first step, very important is that you will find that the remainder 1, okay, and the remainder 2, which is in brackets, will be the same for your second lot of brackets. So here, people, that remainder, although that is for term 3, it will look the same as the remainder for term 1. And plus or minus, the remainder 4 will look like the remainder for term 2. Okay, and if you then look at what you have, then you find that the bracket again becomes the highest common factor. So now for the third time, you take out the highest common factor, which is the bracket. So now remainder 1 and remainder 2 in bracket become the highest common factor. Okay, and then your remainders will be the highest common factor for your first factorization plus or minus the highest common factor for your second factorization. That is the principle. Let me go on with the example because I think then you will better understand this pattern, and remember, I want you to write it down. Okay, so because we've got 4 terms, people, we will start with the highest common factor 1, okay, and we will have a remainder 1 plus or minus remainder 2. So let's look at what is the highest common factor of 8 and 6 is 2, then of A and A is A, and of C and D is nothing. Okay, so then we need to find remainder 1. Remember, we are going to divide first term by first term. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. A divided by A is 1. C divided by nothing gives me a remainder of C. Then take the second term and divide. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. A divided by A is 1. D divided by nothing is D. So that's your first factorization done. Now we go to the second lot, the second group that we put together. So now I'm going to have, in this case, it's a plus. highest common factor 2, and I'm going to have remainder 3, in this case minus remainder 4. Alright, let's find the highest common factor. Between 12 and 9 is 3. Then we've got B, which is common. C and D is not common. Remainder 3, remember we now divide 12 BC by 3B gives me 4C, and then we divide second term, or in fact fourth term really. Negative 9 divided by 3 gives me negative 3. B divided by B is 1, and then D divided by nothing gives me a remainder of D. Okay, and now if you look at that, people, you can clearly see that this bracket and that bracket is the same. So those now become the highest common factor. It is exactly the same. So in the next step, people, my two brackets with the remainders become the highest common factor. So now again, I have a highest common factor, and then I again have a remainder 1 plus or minus remainder 2. Okay, which then the highest common factor is the bracket. So I will now take out the 4C minus 3D as bracket, as highest common factor. Okay, and then we do the division, isn't it? 2 divided by nothing is 2, right? A divided by nothing is A. The bracket divided by the bracket equals 1. So now I am done. Then I go to my second term. 3 divided by nothing is 3. B divided by nothing is B. Okay, and bracket divided by bracket is 1. So I am done. So what do I end off with, people? I end off with 2 brackets. But what we really do, we group our terms into groups of 2, and we take out the highest common factor. Then my second group, I take out my highest common factor. Then we will find that the brackets, the remainder 1 and 2, really is the same here. Remainder 1 and 2, isn't it? So my bracket becomes the highest common factor. Take that one out, and then really these 2 highest common factors make up my second bracket. So this is my remainder again of that term and my remainder of that term. Okay, I hope you understand. Please watch the videos a few times so that you get that.